in the jam.
Did 12 years.
12
got
years.
out, interviewed, said he kept it real, brought him cars, gave him 50,000. Made mention that ain't no smut on his name. He ain't never been a rat. Caught a gun case, but eventually he flipped.
Heard somebody named OTF Jam. They said they've been calling him a rat. And basically he said, okay, I'm a rat. Well, watch this.
A popular rap artist is behind bars after a shocking arrest, as authorities accuse him of being connected to an alleged murder for hire plot. Chicago rapper Durk Banks, better known by his stage name.
It looks like the streets are finally starting to react to Lil Durk's recent arrest, because it seems bodies are beginning to drop. According to sources, the first casualty related to this case is none other than OTF Jam's baby mama, who was offed.
Octavia Redmond was shot to death last month while on her route near 121st and South Harvard. Police say someone drove up, shot Redmond multiple times, and then drove.
As most people familiar with the case know, OTF Jam has been rumored to be a snitch, allegedly wearing a wire and gathering information on Lil Durk with his name tied to Durk's indictment. It seems the consequences are already playing. Out in the city of Chicago, reports suggest that the city is in a heightened state of paranoia, with people speculating that more violence could follow. Those who are believed to have snitched on Lil Durk may now be seen as targets, with rumors flying that there could be more retaliation on the way. Let's dive in deeper. So Lil Durk's year has taken a complete 180. Earlier in February, he was celebrating the peak of his career, having won his first Grammy and scoring a major Billboard hit with his song All My Life featuring J. Cole. Now, just a few months later in October, Durk is behind bars facing some of the most serious accusations of his life. According to court records, he's being accused of masterminding a murder for hire that resulted in the death of Durando's cousin back in 2022.
Rap artist is behind bars after a shocking arrest, as authorities accuse him of being connected to an alleged for hire plot. Chicago rapper Durk Banks, better known.
One of the biggest angles in this story revolves around speculation that Durk was betrayed by one of his own close affiliates, OTF Jam, on October 25th, shortly after a federal criminal complaint was unsealed. Details surfaced accusing Lil Durk of placing a bounty on Quando Rondo's head. The complaint alleges that Durk paid 5 men to carry out this brazen murder attempt. Almost immediately, rumors began circulating that OTF Jam was the person who may have played a role in getting Durk caught, with sources claiming that Jam had been secretly working as an informant, allegedly even wearing a wire to collect evidence. Prominent figures in the hip-hop community, including Wack 100 and DJ Academics, have openly discussed the rumors about OTF Jam. Wack 100, during an interview on Vlad TV, provided some background on Jam's situation, stating he did 12 years, got out. Interviewed, said he kept it real, brought him cars, gave him $50. 00 made mention that ain't no smudge on his name, he ain't never been a rat, caught a gun case, but eventually he flipped.
Did 12 years.
12
got
years.
out, interviewed, said he kept it real, brought him cars, gave him 50,000. Made mention that ain't no smut on his name, he ain't never been a rat. Caught a gun case, but eventually he
DJ Vlad added fuel to the conversation, agreeing with Wack and saying he had allegedly been wearing a wire for the last 2 years.
OTF Jam did 12 years for 10. He got out in 2022, right around the same time of the Quando situation. And he allegedly had been wearing a wire for the last 2 years.
I'm 22.
Additionally, Chicago rapper King Yella also shared his thoughts, saying he had heard from a source within OTF that someone had snitched on Durk, specifically naming OTF Jam. Somebody named OTF Jam.
Somebody named OTF Jam. They said they've been calling him a rat. And basically he said, okay, I'm a rat. Well, watch this.
As if to confirm this. Further, multiple blogs and media outlets are reporting that OTF Jam's name is actually listed in the indictment as a police informant, making these accusations appear even more credible. But this whole situation only gets murkier because despite all the rumors, there's no actual documentation that ties OTF Jam to Lil Durk's indictment. Neither the criminal complaint filed against the 5 suspects in connection to Quando Rondo's cousin's death, nor Lil Durk's own indictment mentions Casey. Hester, also known as OTF Jam by name. The indictment does refer to a witness and includes some initials to conceal the identities of those involved. However, there's no mention of KH or any reference that definitively connects back to OTF Jam OTF. Jam's background only adds to the mystery-born Casey Hester. He was convicted of a shooting in 2010 and served 12 years in prison. He was released in February 2022, only to be arrested again on a warrant in May 2023 for issues related to that same case, though the exact status of his current charges is unclear. Recently, OTF Jam released a song that stirred up even more speculation because of his lyrical references to Lil Durk and mentions of violence in the track. He raps, "Smirk is the voice. You heard what he said, so bullets behind it, we ain't F to tussle."
You heard what he said, some bullets behind it, we ain't finna tussle. Lil Vernie sitting in that chair with a...
Her shooter's getaway car was found abandoned and burned in a neighboring area shortly after the attack.
Rapping me a rapper, so phone number house on them, put in their music. God lose.
And then reappears returning to the car after carrying out the fatal attack. Months later, a 15-year-old boy was arrested in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and identified as Redmond's Keir. However, the motive for her murder has yet to be disclosed, fueling more speculation.
Was shot to death last month while on her route near 121st and South Harvard. Police say someone drove up, shot Redmond multiple times, and then drove away.
Her shooter's getaway car was found abandoned and burned in a neighboring area shortly after the attack. In August, law enforcement released surveillance footage of the incident, revealing more details about how the fatal shooting unfolded. The video reportedly shows a masked assailant getting into a stolen vehicle a few blocks away from where the shooting occurred. The shooter exits the vehicle near the crime scene, disappears from view for a short time, and then reappears, returning to the car after carrying out the fatal attack.
Police say someone drove up, shot Redmond multiple times, and then drove away. According to investigators, the person they're looking for was seen near 70th and South Campbell.
The young suspect has been charged with felony first-degree murder and was extradited back to Chicago, where he was arraigned at the Cook County Juvenile Court. He is scheduled to face the court on November 1st. Then there's the case of Stephen Mack, who also met a tragic end in Chicago's Rosand neighborhood on January 7, 2022. Mack was leaving the Youth Peace Center when he was ambushed by two assailants who got out of a car and opened fire. It was a violent scene on that fateful afternoon as Mack became the target of a sudden and deadly attack. Tragically, he was struck, and a security guard who happened to be nearby was also hit by the gunfire, but fortunately survived his injuries. The brazen nature of Mack's murder occurring in broad daylight left a lasting impact on the community nearly 2 years after the shooting in December 2023. Federal authorities announced indictments in connection to Mack's murder. A federal grand jury in Chicago charged two men, 24-year-old Anthony Montgomery Wilson and 23-year-old Preston Powell, in what was described as a MDER for hire plot. Both men were indicted on charges of MDER for hire, as well as related gun charges. The indictment suggested that there were orchestrated, premeditated motives behind Mack's killing. Although specific details regarding who may have ordered the attack were not publicly revealed, however, as with the other cases connected to OTF Jam and Lil Durk, official documentation directly linking any of these individuals remains scarce. Publicly available records haven't substantiated claims tying Max's death directly to Lil Durk or any ongoing feuds within the hip-hop community. Now let's dive into the chain of events that led to the tragic loss of Quando Rondo's cousin Lil Po during that fateful trip to LA. It was August 18th, and Quando Rondo had just landed in LA with his crew, which included his sister and his cousin LOL Pob. Like many rappers in the game, Quando followed the common tradition of tapping in with local affiliates whenever you're in their city. Quando is connected with a Crips set in LA, so naturally he reached out to let them know he was there. Who he tapped in with exactly isn't clear, but it's pretty typical to connect with your own set for safety, especially if you're known in the streets. But things took a dark turn after this. Not long after he tapped in, OTF and Lil Durk's crew allegedly had not only Q's location, but also where he was staying and all the details of his itinerary. Now, it's still up in the air. How OTF got this information so quickly, was it just a coincidence or did someone leak the info either way? As soon as Kwandu landed, it seemed like OTF was suddenly aware of his every move after learning. Close whereabouts, it said that ZK's people moved fast flights, rental cars, private jets. Everything was booked urgently as OTF members rushed to law. The urgency wasn't random either. Reports say that a bounty had been placed on QU's head allegedly by a co-conspirator. The main person financing this operation. Many speculate that co-conspirator 1 is actually Lil Durk, given his high rank and resources in OTF. It's his label, his credit cards that were reportedly used for booking all of this flights, hotels, rental cars. The setup seemed all too organized with multiple people involved in what looks like a revenge mission.
That co-conspirator 1 seems to be aiming at somebody who's a boss within the OTF organization that could call that could put money up, and also promise aiming at someone who would be Durk or could be Durk's brother who passed. But the only person living would be Durk. It could be Durk.
Once OTF landed in law, they moved like clockwork. They got what they needed: cars, hotels, ski masks, firearms. They even communicated using coded messages to avoid suspicion. Eventually, they all gathered near QU's hotel, knowing his entire schedule, even when and where he'd be heading next on the day of the ambush. Kwandu was driving a black Escalade with OTF members tailing him in a white BMW. They tracked him discreetly, trailing his every move. It's said that Kwandu wasn't even aware he was being followed when they finally caught up with him at a gas station. They wasted no time. OTF's crew parked nearby, hopped out and began firing. The tragic part is Kwandu himself was inside the vehicle, but his cousin, Lal Poob, was outside when the shots rang out. PAB was hit, but Kwandu was fortunate enough to make it through unharmed. Kwandu, the man who was most likely their actual target, literally escaped without a scratch.
Shots fired, a fight taken to the streets, and this chaotic scene, the ending of a shooting that started in Los Angeles, California. Sheriff's deputies pulling out a man who had been shot in an Savannah rapper Quando Rondo, a passenger in that car.
Afterward, the crew gathered at a food spot to settle the financials. They talked about how the money from this hit would be split up, who would get what share, and once everything was sorted, they quickly left LA and headed straight back to Chicago. Now Durk had set himself up to stay clear of any direct ties to the whole situation. He made sure to tell the crew, "Look, even though you're using the OTF credit cards, don't book anything under my name, my family's name, or anyone." Remotely linked to me, Durk's intent was to be nowhere in the official paper trail. And the reason we know he specifically instructed co-conspirator 3, who many think is cooperating with the feds, is because this person was tasked with booking the private jet for OTF. Durk wanted to make it clear, don't use his name for anything and keep him out of it as much as possible. Once the crew got back, the payments were handled by another OTF member. Likely OTFD, he was the one in charge of making sure everyone involved was paid and kept quiet so Durk wouldn't need to get involved in any direct dealings. And for a while, it looked like things were going according to plan. That is, until someone allegedly started talking. And that's where OTF Jam comes into the picture. But this lack of concrete evidence hasn't stopped speculation from spreading, though. Especially since there's been no official statement from OTF Jam or his legal team. As a result, rumors continue to circulate in both the media and on social platforms.